Our house was alive and feeding on us. The truth nearly destroyed my family Reddit stories. Before I tell you what really happened, you need to understand the house itself. It wasn't grand or old, not one of those sprawling estates with ivy crawling up the bricks. No, this house sat at the end of a quiet street in a nondescript suburb, a simple two-story with faded blue siding and a crooked mailbox that leaned as if exhausted by years of duty. But this house, plain as it seemed, remembered everything. Every argument, every laugh, every whispered secret seeped into the walls and floors, soaked up by the beams that held the roof aloft. You could walk through it and feel the echoes of what had come before, if you were sensitive enough. Most word I was. Perhaps because I had lived there the longest. My family moved in when I was 8. My younger brother, Sam, was 4, and my parents were still pretending their marriage worked. Back then, the house felt alive in a good way, full of possibilities, of rooms not yet claimed and corners unexplored. I remember my mother hanging new curtains in the kitchen, humming to herself as the afternoon sun slanted through the window. My father, hammer in hand, mounting shelves in the living room with an exaggerated show of competence. For a while, we were a unit, tightly wound and optimistic, and the house welcomed us with open arms. But families shift. The ground beneath them erodes in places you don't always see at first. My father's job grew more demanding. Late nights at the office boiled into weekend absences. My mother's smiles thinned, replaced by a brittle sort of brightness that fooled strangers but never us. I grew older, learned to slip out to friends' houses or bury myself in schoolwork. Sam, sensitive and observant in ways that frustrated our parents, clung to me more and more. The house watched it all. By the time I was 16, my father's absences had morphed into something darker. He wasn't just working, he was gone in ways that left shadows in the living room, empty chairs at the dinner table. My mother started spending long hours in the garden, fingers caked with dirt, eyes distant. Sam withdrew too, his once bright chatter replaced with long silences. But I stayed. I couldn't leave, not yet. It was around then I began to notice how the house responded. The air seemed heavier on certain days, as if mourning alongside us. Floorboards creaked at odd hours, not with the careless sounds of settling wood, but with deliberate, rhythmic groans. Sometimes, late at night, I'd sit in the hallway and swear I could hear faint echoes of past conversations. My mother's laughter, my father's booming voice. Distorted, overlapping like worn tape played too many times. The house wasn't haunted, not by ghosts in the traditional sense, but by us. By the weight of everything we brought into it. One particular evening stands out. It was late autumn, the kind of night where wind rattles the windows and darkness presses close. I came home from a study session to find my mother asleep on the couch, TV flickering blue light across her face. Sam wasn't in his room. Panicked, I searched the house, calling his name. Finally, I found him in the attic, a space we rarely used, curled up in an old blanket. His eyes were wide, but not with fear, with understanding. He looked at me and whispered, "The house knows?" I didn't ask what he meant. Deep down, I already knew. As months passed, the rift in our family deepened. My father's return visits became perfunctory, tense affairs that left us all on edge. My mother grew quieter, her energy spent holding together the fraying threads of normalcy. I tried to protect Sam, to shield him from the worst of it, but the house made that impossible. It reflected our emotions back at us, amplifying what we tried to hide. On bad days, mirrors fogged for no reason, light bulbs flickered. On the worst days, doors slammed without a breeze, pictures tilted on their own. Graduation approached. Escape felt tantalizingly close. I had a scholarship waiting, a chance to leave the house and all its memories behind. Yet guilt gnawed at me. Could I abandon Sam? Could I leave my mother alone in this place that remembered too much? I wrestled with these questions in the dark hours of the night, lying awake and listening to the creaks and sighs of the house around me. Sometimes I thought it was trying to speak, to warn me, but the message was garbled, just out of reach. Then came the night everything changed. A storm unlike any we'd seen in years rolled in, wind howling, rain lashing the windows. My father had promised to visit that weekend, but he didn't show. Tension crackled in the air, thick and oppressive. As the storm raged, I found Sam sitting by the front door, suitcase beside him. "I can't stay," he said simply. He was 12, too young to run, but his eyes were resolute. He had felt it too. The shift, the culmination of all the years of strain and silence. Before I could respond, the power cut out. Darkness swallowed the house. In that instant, the house seemed to exhale, a deep, resonant groan vibrating through the walls. We stumbled upstairs to find candles, the beam of my phone flickering. And then we heard it, a voice, faint but unmistakable, coming from the attic. Not ours, not anyone we knew. Just a single word repeated over and over, "Stay." Sam gripped my hand, trembling. The house wasn't ready to let us go. I knew then what I had to do. The house had fed on our dysfunction for too long, grown too attached to our presence. If we stayed, we'd be trapped. Not by locks or walls, but by memories, by guilt, by the weight of all that had transpired within those rooms. I told Sam to pack. I called a friend to come get us. My mother refused to leave, lost in her own sorrow, but I couldn't force her. Not then. As dawn broke and the storm subsided, we stepped outside, bags in hand. The house stood silent, watching. The air felt lighter the farther we walked. That was the beginning of the end, or so I thought. Because what neither of us realized, not until much later, was that the house hadn't finished with us. And sometimes, when the past calls, it doesn't use a phone, it finds another way. I thought distance would be enough. It's what everyone tells you, isn't it? Move away, start fresh, leave the past behind. I believed that, or at least I wanted to. When I packed Sam and myself into my friend's old sedan that morning, I told him we were free. That word, free, felt foreign on my tongue, but it was what he needed to hear. What I needed to believe. We drove for hours through towns neither of us had ever seen, past empty fields and crowded highways. With every mile, the air seemed lighter, as if we were shedding layers of invisible weight. By evening, we reached my friend's apartment in a neighboring city. It wasn't much, 2 cramped bedrooms and a peeling linoleum floor. But it felt untouched by the house, clean in a way I hadn't experienced in years. For the first few nights, we slept deeply, dreamlessly, lulled by the hum of traffic outside rather than the creaks of memory-soaked walls. Sam adapted faster than I expected. At school, he made friends, joined clubs, began laughing again. I told myself he was healing. I told myself I was too. I enrolled in college, juggled part-time jobs, filled my days so completely there was no room for reflection. But late at night, when the city noise quieted and the apartment grew still, I sometimes felt it the house. Not in a literal sense. I wasn't haunted by visions or sounds. But in my mind, I could still hear it breathing, still feel its pull. And then came the phone calls. The first was from my mother. I hadn't heard her voice in months. It was brittle, as if carried across a great chasm. She didn't ask how we were, didn't offer news. Just 5 words spoken flatly. "You need to come home." When I asked why, the line went dead. I tried calling back, but there was no answer. I told myself it was a fluke, a moment of weakness on her part. She would move on. We all would. But the calls continued. Always late at night. Always the same message. "You need to come home." The voice grew stranger each time. Less my mother's, more something else. The cadence was wrong, the tone hollow. And the calls never showed a number. Just unknown. Sam noticed before I admitted it. One night he found me staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring. "It's the house," he said quietly. "It doesn't want us gone." I tried to laugh it off, told him he'd been reading too many ghost stories. But inside, I was shaking. Things escalated from there. We began finding small objects out of place. A framed photo of us with our parents, which I'd hidden in a drawer, sitting on the kitchen table. My old high school notebooks, long packed away, suddenly on my desk, the smell of the house, an odd mix of lavender and old wood, lingering in the air. I stopped sleeping. I stopped pretending. A breaking point came one rainy night. Sam woke screaming, claiming he'd heard footsteps in the hallway. Our hallway, miles from the house. I rushed to his room, heart pounding, only to find his window wide open, rain blowing in. On the sill, etched faintly into the paint, was a single word: stay. I knew then this wouldn't stop. The house wasn't just a place. It had become something more, something that could reach us even here. The only choice was to confront it. Against every instinct, I called my mother. This time, she answered. Her voice was clearer, but cold. "You're finally coming back," she said, not a question but a statement. "It's waiting." I didn't tell Sam the full truth, just that we needed to visit to settle things. He understood more than I wanted him to. We packed in silence, boarded a bus the next morning. The journey felt endless. As we neared our old town, an oppressive weight returned, coiling in my chest. Stepping off the bus, everything felt wrong. The streets were too quiet, the air too thick. Our house loomed at the end of its street, windows dark, mailbox still crooked. It looked abandoned. But as we approached, I felt a vibration beneath my feet, subtle but insistent. The house was aware of us. Inside, nothing had changed. Furniture coated in dust, old curtains hanging limp. But there was no musty smell, no decay. The house had preserved itself, waiting. In the living room, my mother sat in her old armchair, eyes blank, staring at nothing. She didn't speak as we entered. Didn't even blink. It was as if she were part of the house now, fused to it. Sam gripped my hand tightly. The floorboards creaked softly beneath us, a familiar rhythm. The house was breathing again. I called out to my mother, shaking her gently. Finally, she turned to me, and in a voice that wasn't hers said, "What did you leave?" The question hung in the air, thick as fog. Before I could answer, the lights flickered. The walls seemed to pulse, faint whispers rising from unseen corners. Sam's eyes widened. "It's in the walls," he whispered. We needed to leave. Now? But as we turned, the front door slammed shut on its own. The air grew icy, every breath visible. The house wasn't letting us go. Desperate, I led Sam upstairs, hoping to find another way out. But every window was sealed tight, frames warped as if fused to the walls. The attic hatch gaped open, a dark maw above. Sam hesitated, but I urged him up. It was the only choice. The attic was just as we'd left it, boxes of old toys, dusty trunks. But at its center lay something new, a circle of objects. Photos, trinkets, pieces of clothing, all belonging to us. A makeshift shrine. At its center, my childhood diary, open to a page where the words "you belong here" had been scrawled over and over in shaky handwriting. A low hum filled the room, growing louder. The house was speaking now, not in words but in feeling, a deep, consuming hunger. It didn't want us to leave because we were part of it. Our memories, our pain had fed it for years. It couldn't survive without us. Sam clutched my arm. "We have to burn it," he said, voice steady. I hesitated. What if destroying the shrine made things worse? But staying wasn't an option. We gathered old newspapers, broken furniture. With trembling hands, I struck a match. The fire caught quickly, flames licking at the shrine. The house groaned. A deep, agonized sound that shook the rafters. The whispers turned to screams. Smoke filled the attic. We fled down the stairs, coughing, eyes watering. At the bottom, we found the front door ajar. The house was distracted, its focus fractured. We ran, out into the night, away from the suffocating grip of those walls. From the street, we watched as smoke billowed from the attic window. The house shuddered visibly, its structure seeming to sag. I thought we had won, that it was over. But as we turned to leave, my phone buzzed. One new message, no number, come home. The house wasn't finished with us. Not yet. I wish I could tell you we never looked back. That after that night, after the fire, after running into the wet black streets with the house screaming behind us, it all ended. But memory is stubborn. And when the thing that holds those memories is alive in ways you don't fully understand, it becomes more than stubborn. It becomes relentless. For a few weeks, Sam and I tried to fall back into life. Back at the apartment, surrounded by bland white walls and cheap furniture, we pretended. I returned to classes, distracted and raw. Sam went to school with circles under his eyes. We spoke less, skimming over the things we couldn't explain. I thought, hoped, that maybe the house's grip had weakened. But the message on my phone said otherwise. Come home. And it wasn't just one. It was every night. Sometimes a text, sometimes a voicemail. Always that same hollow voice, not quite my mother's, urging us to return. I blocked the number. Another would appear. I changed phones. Still, the messages found me. And then they found Sam. He began waking at odd hours, standing in the hallway, staring at nothing. Once I found him trying to unlock the front door at 3 a.m., eyes glassy. "It's calling me," he whispered. "It's in my head." I knew then that we hadn't escaped. Not really. The house wasn't just a place. It was inside us now, threaded through memory, through blood. It wanted us back because it needed us to be whole again. I tried researching hauntings, psychic phenomena, anything that might explain what was happening. Most of it was useless. Some of it, though. Threads about places that became sentient, that fed on emotional energy, chilled me. The house had been a vessel for years, absorbing everything we poured into it. And when we left, we starved it. One name kept appearing in the strangest corners of my research: Evelyn Rourke, an academic turned occultist who wrote about living spaces. In the 1980s, before disappearing, I tracked down a thin, self-published book she'd written. Structures of the Mind, the Sentience of Place. It was dense, half-mad in tone, but one passage stood out. When such a structure forms a bond with an individual or family, separation becomes traumatic for the place and for the people. Reconnection is sought, sometimes violently. Reconnection. That's what the house wanted, and it was using Sam as a conduit. One evening, after another sleepless night, Sam looked at me with hollow eyes and said, "I have to go back. I dream of it. If I stay away, it hurts." His nose had started bleeding without warning, another sign something was terribly wrong. I couldn't risk losing him. If the house wanted a confrontation, it would get one, but on my terms. I reached out to the few people online who had referenced Evelyn's work. One, a retired librarian named Marcus, responded. We spoke in hushed tones over the phone. He'd encountered a similar situation once, years ago. "The house is tethered to you," he explained. "To cut the tether, you must confront the root, whatever moment fused it to your family. But how?" "You'll know when you're inside," he said. "But be warned, it will not want to let you see." Against all common sense, I prepared to return. This time, I brought protection. Salt, candles, iron nails, even a crude charm Marcus had sent. Sam insisted on coming. I couldn't stop him. He was too connected now. We traveled by car this time. I wanted control. The closer we got, the more erratic Sam became. Headaches, nausea, muttering under his breath. I felt it too, a pressure in my skull, a pull behind my sternum. By the time we reached our street, the sun was setting, sky bruised purple. The house looked unchanged. The attic window was cracked from the fire, but the walls stood firm, too firm. The air vibrated, thick with unseen energy. The moment we crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind us. Inside, the house breathed slow and deep, floorboards flexing underfoot. My mother was nowhere to be seen. Or perhaps she had become one with it entirely. We ventured room by room. The kitchen reeked of lavender and smoke. The living room's walls seemed to ripple faintly, like muscle beneath skin. Every step we took echoed unnaturally. Then came the voices, soft at first, rising as we moved deeper. Not one voice, but many: my father's booming laugh, my mother's brittle tone, Sam's childhood giggle, even my own teenage mutterings, looped and layered, coming from nowhere and everywhere. We climbed to the second floor, drawn to the source. The master bedroom door stood ajar. Inside, the air was icy. The bed was perfectly made, untouched. On the dresser sat an old jewelry box of my mother's, lid open. Inside, beneath the trinkets, lay a stack of old photographs, every one of them of us, but our eyes had been scratched out. Sam began to convulse, falling to his knees. I tried to pull him up, but his body jerked violently. His voice came out layered with others. "She stayed. We all stay." I realized then, this was the root, the moment when it began. Not the fights, not the neglect, but the choice my mother made to stay, to sink into the house rather than face the pain of leaving. The house had fed on that choice, warped it into an anchor for all of us. Desperate, I dragged Sam back toward the attic, the heart of the house. The shrine we'd burned was gone, but the floorboards were blackened, warped in a circular pattern. The air buzzed with rage. I drove iron nails into the floor at each cardinal point, as Marcus had instructed, salted the circle, lit the candles. The house screamed, a sound that rattled bone. Then I spoke, not to the house but to my mother. "You can leave," I said. "You don't have to stay." None of us do. For a heartbeat, everything stilled. Then, from behind me, her voice, soft, broken, "I can't." I turned. My mother stood in the doorway, pale and thin, eyes like glass. But for the first time, truly her, not the house, just her. "You can," I insisted. "We all can." The tears streamed down her face, and as she stepped into the circle, the floor buckled violently. Sam screamed. The house fought back, but I held firm, chanting words Marcus had given me, an invocation of release, of severance. Light flared. The screams crescendoed, then abruptly ceased. We awoke at dawn, lying on the floor. The house was silent, truly silent. No breathing walls, no phantom voices. My mother was gone. Whether freed or claimed, I didn't know. Outside, the sun rose bright and clean. Sam stirred, eyes clear for the first time in weeks. "It's over," he whispered. I hoped he was right, but as we walked away, hand in hand, I glanced back once. The house stood still, empty, but in the upper window, a faint shape lingered. Watching, waiting, and somewhere deep in my bones, I knew the house remembered. You would think after something like that, after standing in the belly of the thing that had stalked your family for years, after feeling it scream and twist and then fall eerily quiet, you would think I'd be able to let it go. But the mind doesn't work like that, and neither did the house. Not entirely. For a few weeks afterward, life was different. Lighter. Sam no longer muttered in his sleep. His nosebleeds stopped. I stopped waking at 3 a.m. with a cold sweat and the taste of lavender on my tongue. The phone calls ended. No more come-home messages. For the first time in what felt like years, I thought we might actually be free. I focused on school. Sam seemed happier, even joined a robotics club, something I'd never seen him have the energy for before. We started making new routines, cooking together, going to the movies. The apartment, once a sterile box, began to feel like a home, a real home. But some part of me stayed coiled, waiting. The house had spent so long embedded in our lives, I didn't know how to fully unclench. I told myself this was just old trauma, a bruise fading slowly. But then small things began happening again. It started subtle. A flicker of cold air brushing my neck when there was no breeze. Keys misplaced even though I'd been certain where I left them. Sam's drawings he'd taken up sketching began to feature odd shapes. When I asked, he shrugged. "It just comes out," he said. Then the dreams returned. Not every night, but often enough to erode the sense of safety we'd rebuilt. The dreams were always the same. I'm standing on our old street. The house looms ahead, but something is wrong. The sky above it is dark and roiling, like ink spilled in water. The door is open. Inside, shadows move. I step forward, and the air thickens, pressing against me, urging me in. Then I wake. I didn't tell Sam about the dreams. I didn't want to scare him. But one morning over breakfast, he looked up and said, "I dreamed about the house last night." His voice was calm, but his eyes were tired. "It's not done with us." I wanted to argue, to reassure him, but the truth sat heavy in my chest. He was right. I reached out to Marcus again, desperate for guidance. When I told him what had happened, the ritual, my mother stepping into the circle, the brief silence that followed, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You severed part of its hold. But things like that, they don't just die. They adapt." Adapt. That word chilled me. The house wasn't a static thing. It had learned from us for years. It had grown. And now, cut off from its source, It was trying to find a new way to reach us. I asked Marcus what we could do. His answer wasn't comforting. You need to understand what it is fully. There's a deeper root. You severed a branch, not the trunk. Until you find that root, it will keep pulling. But how was I supposed to find something that wasn't a person, wasn't a post, but a presence? A sentient place. I felt helpless, like I was fighting fog. Then something happened that forced my hand. One rainy afternoon, I came home to find Sam gone. His backpack sat by the door untouched. His phone lay on his desk. I searched the apartment, the building, the street. No sign set in. I called friends, the school, even the police. Hours passed. Night fell. Just after midnight, my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number, "Come home." Attached was a photo. My heart stopped. It was Sam standing in front of our old house, eyes vacant, the front door open behind him. I didn't think. I drove. Through empty streets slick with rain, heart pounding, mind racing. How had he gotten there? What was controlling him? When I reached the street, the house was different. Its shape seemed subtly wrong. Windows shifted, roof angles warped. The air shimmered around it. I spotted Sam on the porch, barefoot, soaked from the rain. He didn't respond when I called his name. As I ran toward him, the front door swung wider. The house wanted me inside. I hesitated on the threshold, every instinct screaming to run. But Sam's vacant gaze held me fast. I stepped in. The door slammed shut behind me. Inside, it was like stepping into a dream. Or a nightmare. The walls were no longer wood and plaster, but pulsing with a dim, inner light. The floors flexed beneath my feet, warm and slick. Voices echoed all around. Our voices, past arguments, laughter, cries. Time seemed to fold in on itself. Sam stood in the living room unmoving. When I touched his arm, he shuddered but didn't speak. Then the house spoke. Not in words, but in feeling. A wave of longing, hunger, loss. It wasn't just feeding on us, it was us. A composite of everything we'd left behind. I understood then. The root wasn't a moment or an object. It was the accumulation of every unresolved emotion, every secret, every piece of ourselves we'd poured into this place. And we couldn't sever it by force. We had to release it. I pulled Sam close, whispered, "You don't belong here." "Neither do I." The house pushed back, shadows writhing, air thickening. Images flashed. My father's angry face, my mother's hollow eyes, my own fear. The house was trying to drown us in the past. But I refused. I began speaking aloud, naming the memories, the pain, the guilt, acknowledging them, releasing them. For every word, the house seemed to weaken, its glow dimming. Sam stirred, blinking. Tears ran down his face. Together, we kept speaking, confessions, forgiveness, grief. The walls cracked. The floor buckled. A final surge of force hit us, a desperate, clawing attempt to hold on. But we held each other and kept speaking. And then, with a sound like a great exhale, the house stilled. When we opened our eyes, we were standing in an empty shell. Bare walls, cold floor, silent air. The presence was gone. Outside, dawn was breaking. We left without looking back. Later, I spoke to Marcus again. He said simply, "You faced it. That's the only way. But be mindful. Some echoes may remain." He was right. Sometimes on quiet nights, I still feel a faint pull. But it no longer controls us. We are free. Or as free as one can be from a house that remembered too much. But deep down, I know this isn't the end of the story. Because places like that, they wait. And they remember. Always. You tell yourself that after something like that, after standing in the heart of it, after naming the darkness, after watching the walls crack and hearing that long, guttural exhale that felt like the thing's final breath, you tell yourself it's over, that the weight is gone, that you can finally exhale too. And for a while, you do. You wake up in the morning and your chest doesn't ache. You walk across the apartment and the shadows don't twitch at the corners of your vision. You sleep through the night. You even forget some days. You start to believe in normal again. But the past isn't a thing you can burn to ash and sweep away. It's a seed lodged deep. And sometimes, when the season is right, it starts to grow again. It was 6 months after the final night in the house. Sam was thriving in ways I hadn't dared hope for. Top grades, a close circle of friends, even laughter that sounded real, not forced. I'd finished the semester strong, picked up more hours at work, even started seeing someone. A cautious, quiet thing that felt more like testing the air than diving in. Life had texture again, and then the letter came. Not a text. Not a call, a letter, thick cream envelope, no return address. Just my name, written in a spidery hand that made my skin crawl the moment I touched it. I knew what it was before I opened it. I knew it in my bones. Inside, one sheet of paper. On it, 4 words in that same sharp script, "It is not over." No signature, no clue who had sent it. But I didn't need a clue. The paper smelled faintly of lavender and old wood. I burned it immediately. Told myself it was a prank, that someone from the town had heard rumors, was trying to scare us. People loved ghost stories. They loved digging into wounds that weren't theirs. But that night, the dreams returned. Not the old looping ones, not the vision of the house looming down the street. This was new. In the dream, I was in the apartment, sitting on the couch. A knock at the door. I opened it, and the hallway stretched long and dark, impossibly so. At the far end, a door stood open, our old front door. Light poured from it, pulsing in time with my heartbeat, and something whispered, "Come and see." I woke gasping. The room felt wrong, air too thick, too cold. A faint outline of footprints led from the apartment door to the edge of my bed. Damp, as though someone, or something, had been there. For days after, I watched Sam like a hawk, waiting for signs. But he seemed untouched, bright-eyed, focused. I didn't tell him about the letter or the dream. I didn't want to drag him back into it. I went back to Marcus, desperate for answers. He listened, voice grim. "I told you some echoes remain," he said. "But this isn't an echo. It's a tether. You severed the house's hold, but something of it remains with you. A fragment, and now it's trying to grow. A tether." The word chilled me. I asked how that was possible. We'd faced it, released everything. "Places like that," Marcus said slowly, "they aren't just built from brick and wood. They're built from you. Your emotions, your memories. You can't burn what's inside you. So what now? You need to find where it's anchored. The tether can't survive without an anchor." I had no idea where to start. We destroyed the shrine. Spoken the words. Released the past. What else could there be? Then, late one night, while digging through an old box of papers for a school form, I found it. An object so mundane I almost missed its weight. A key. Rusted old. The key to the house. The one I used to carry on my chain in high school. The one I'd forgotten to throw away. The moment I touched it, the air seemed to pulse. A wave of nausea hit me. My vision swam. In that moment, I knew this was it. The anchor. I called Marcus. He confirmed it. Sometimes the simplest objects held the strongest bonds. "You need to return it," he said. "Not to the house. To where it belongs. To the earth." But the house wasn't there anymore. Or so I thought. Driven by a terrible curiosity, I drove back to the old street the next day. Sam was at school. I didn't tell him where I was going. I told myself I'd just check. Confirm it was gone. The street was empty. The lot where the house had stood was leveled. Just bare dirt and weeds now. But as I stepped from the car, my breath caught. The air was wrong. Still too thick, too cold. And in the center of the lot, where the heart of the house had been, a small mound of earth stood. Fresh, as though something beneath had been pushing upward. The key in my pocket grew hot. I staggered forward, every step heavier. By the time I reached the mound, the world seemed distant, muted. And then a voice, not aloud, but in my head, deep and familiar, returned, "What is mine?" My hands shook. I dug with trembling fingers, clawing at the earth until the key slipped free of my grasp and into the dirt. The moment it left my skin, the ground shuddered. The air shifted. The pressure lifted. I stumbled back, gasping. The mound settled, earth smoothing itself as though nothing had disturbed it. The presence retreated. Relief flooded me, but it was thin, temporary. As I drove away, I knew it wasn't finished. Back at the apartment, I found Sam waiting, pale. "You went back?" he said quietly. Not a question. I nodded. I dreamed it, he whispered. The house, it's still under there, waiting. And in that moment, I realized the truth. The house wasn't just remembering us. It was becoming something more. The land itself was infected now, seeded with everything we'd left behind. Destroying the structure had only set the roots deeper. I didn't tell Marcus. I didn't know what to say. Because deep down, a terrible certainty had taken hold. This wasn't just about us anymore. Whatever the house had become, it was awake, and it was growing. You can feel when a storm is coming. Even before the clouds gather, it's in the air. A kind of vibration beneath your skin, a hum in your bones. That's what life became after I buried the key. Like a storm waiting to break, like a breath held too long, and deep down I knew it was only a matter of time. At first, I tried to pretend, tried to wrap myself in the ordinary. Work, school, walks with Sam, movie nights. But it was there, always there, the hum. Sam felt it too. He didn't say it out loud, but some nights I'd catch him sitting by the window, eyes distant, listening for something I couldn't hear. Marcus stopped returning my calls. Maybe he was afraid, maybe he'd seen this before and knew what came next. Either way, we were alone again, and the dreams were changing. They came every night now. Not the house on our old street, not anymore. In the dreams, the ground was splitting open. Roots pushed up from the soil, a black and slick, writhing like living things, and beneath them a heartbeat. Slow, deep, the pulse of something waking. And then came the signs. First, the birds, dead ones. 4, 5, 6 at a time, littering the sidewalk outside our building. No wounds, no blood, just lifeless, as if the air itself had drained them. Then the cracks, not in the apartment walls. No, the cracks ran through me. Small fissures in memory. I'd lose minutes, hours. I'd look down and my hands would be filthy with soil, with no memory of where I'd been. Sam began sleepwalking again, always toward the door, always murmuring the same phrase that it's calling. It's calling. I tried everything, cleansings, charms. I even drove to the lot one more time, this time armed with salt, iron incantations Marcus had once whispered about. But the lot was different. The mound was gone. In its place, a wide, dark pit had opened, surrounded by dead grass and cracked earth. I couldn't go near it. The air pressed too hard. The hum had become a roar. That night, I finally told Sam the truth. Everything about the dreams, about the pit. He listened, face pale but steady. When I finished, he said softly, "We have to end it." But how do you end something that's no longer a house, no longer a place? Something that's become part of the land, part of us? Sam had an idea. It was reckless, desperate, but it was the only one we had. If it's feeding on what we left behind, he said, then we take it all back. Every piece, every memory. We face it one last time. He was right. We'd fought it with fear, with ritual, with resistance. But the house, whatever it was now, thrived on what we refused to face. It was time to stop running. We prepared carefully, not with weapons, with memory. We dug through every box, every photo, every letter, every object tied to that place. We spoke aloud every story, every buried truth. We didn't hide from it this time. We invited it. And when the night came, we went to the pit. Together. The street was empty, the town eerily silent. No wind, no stars. Just that pulsing black hole in the earth thrumming with life. We stood at its edge, the memories heavy in our hands. Photos, trinkets, pieces of the past. And we spoke. We named every hurt, every love. We told the house, the thing beneath the earth, everything we had never dared say. And as we spoke, the pit responded. Roots surged upward, black and glistening, twisting toward us. But we didn't run. We burned the objects, one by one, each release a severing thread. The roots writhed, the earth shook, the air screamed. And then Sam did something I hadn't expected. He stepped to the edge, eyes blazing. "You're not us anymore," he said. "You never were. We're done feeding you." And he threw in the last object, an old drawing from the attic, one he'd made as a child. A piece of pure memory. The pit convulsed. A sound erupted. Not a roar, not a scream, but a wail. A sound of breaking. Light burst from the pit. Blinding cold, sharp as knives. I grabbed Sam, shielded him, and then silence. When we opened our eyes, the pit was gone. The ground was smooth, untouched. The air was still. The hum was gone. We stood there a long time, unsure if it was real. But when we finally turned to leave, I knew it was over, not erased, not forgotten, but ended. Back home, life moved on. Slowly, carefully. The dreams stopped. The air was clean. Sam laughed again, not the brittle laugh of survival, but the full laugh of a boy free from a shadow. Sometimes I still wonder, did we truly end it? Or did we simply teach it to sleep? But the answer doesn't matter. Not anymore. Because here's what I've learned, some places do remember. Some wounds in the earth can grow teeth, but memory isn't a prison. Not if you face it, name it, and let it go. And we did. The house remembered. But we remembered too. And in the end, that was enough. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe and like the video.